Success starts with a winning mindset. When you train your mind to break limits, you unlock the power to achieve the impossible. Think like a winner. Train your mind for limitless success and crush adversity. Written by Varric Larnell and published by Listen, Grow, Sleep. Introduction. The mindset that separates winners from the rest. What separates those who consistently succeed from those who struggle? What allows some people to overcome tremendous adversity while others are derailed by minor setbacks? The answer isn't found in circumstances, connections, or even natural talent. The true differentiator is mindset, the way you think about challenges, opportunities, failures, and success. Throughout my years as a therapist and mental strength trainer, I've worked with people from all walks of life, from executives leading global organizations to individuals facing life-altering diagnoses, from elite athletes pushing the boundaries of human performance to parents navigating the everyday challenges of family life. What I've discovered is that mental strength isn't a quality you either have or don't have. It's a set of skills that anyone can develop with the right understanding and consistent practice. This audiobook is your guide to developing the mindset of a winner, someone who faces life's challenges with resilience, approaches opportunities with confidence, learns from failures without being defined by them, and achieves success not through luck, but through deliberate mental habits. The journey we're about to embark on isn't about positive thinking in a superficial sense. It's not about denying reality or pretending that everything is wonderful when it isn't. Rather, it's about approaching life's challenges with a mindset that empowers, rather than diminishes you. It's about recognizing when your thinking is working against you and having the tools to redirect it in more productive ways. Mental strength, like physical strength, requires both addition and subtraction. Just as building a strong physical body involves both adding healthy habits, like regular exercise, and eliminating unhealthy ones, like poor nutrition. Building mental strength requires both cultivating positive mental practices and eliminating destructive thought patterns. In the chapters ahead, we'll explore the specific mental habits that distinguish winners from those who remain stuck. We'll examine how to identify and overcome the self-defeating thoughts that limit your potential. We'll discover strategies for building emotional resilience that allows you to navigate life's inevitable ups and downs. And we'll learn how to take purposeful action even in the face of uncertainty or adversity. Each chapter includes not just concepts, but practical strategies you can implement immediately. These aren't theoretical ideas, they're proven approaches that have helped thousands of people transform their mindset and, as a result, their lives. You'll meet individuals who have used these exact strategies to overcome significant challenges and achieve remarkable success. As you listen to this audiobook, I encourage you to approach it not just as an interesting exploration of mental strength, but as a personal training program for your mind. The concepts and strategies shared here will only make a difference if you apply them consistently in your daily life. Mental strength, like physical strength, develops through practice, not just knowledge. Whether you're currently facing a specific challenge, working toward an important goal, or simply want to strengthen your mental muscles for whatever life may bring, the principles in this audiobook will equip you with the mindset needed to not just survive, but thrive. You'll learn to think like a winner, not occasionally or accidentally, but consistently and intentionally. Are you ready to transform your mindset and unlock your potential for limitless success? Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Hidden Cost of Mental Habits. Have you ever scrolled through social media and felt that twinge of envy when you see someone's seemingly perfect life? Perhaps it's that friend with the gorgeous house, rewarding career, and picture-perfect family adventures that always seem to be professionally photographed. The one who constantly posts about feeling blessed and grateful, and you can tell they genuinely mean it. We've all experienced this. And if we're being honest, sometimes we don't particularly like that person, do we? We might roll our eyes or make a cynical comment under our breath. It seems harmless enough, just a momentary reaction that takes only seconds of our time. How could it possibly be hurting us? But research tells a different story. Studies have found that envying your friends on social media actually leads to depression. That fleeting moment of comparison and resentment isn't as innocent as it seems. It's one of the many traps our minds set for us, mental habits that might feel natural or even temporarily satisfying, but ultimately erode our mental strength and well-being. Think about other common thought patterns. Complaining about your boss, wondering why your friends have all the luck, feeling sorry for yourself when things don't go your way. These ways of thinking might seem small and inconsequential in the moment. They might even provide temporary emotional relief, but they're actually eating away at your mental strength, limiting your potential, and diminishing your capacity to handle life's inevitable challenges. These destructive beliefs fall into three main categories, each undermining your effectiveness and robbing you of mental power in different ways. The first category includes unhealthy beliefs about ourselves. Self-pity is a prime example. While it's perfectly normal and healthy to feel sad when something unfortunate happens, self-pity goes beyond appropriate sadness. It involves magnifying your misfortune, thinking thoughts like, "Why do these things always happen to me?" Or, "I shouldn't have to deal with this." This kind of thinking keeps you stuck. It focuses your attention on the problem rather than potential solutions. Even in situations where you can't change the circumstances, you can always take steps to improve your life or someone else's. But you can't do that when you're hosting your own pity party, wallowing in how unfair everything is. The second category encompasses unhealthy beliefs about others. Many of us operate under the assumption that other people can control us, and in doing so, we give away our power. As adults living in a free society, there are actually very few things in life that we truly have to do. When you say, "I have to work late," you're surrendering your agency. Yes, there might be consequences if you don't work late, but it's still fundamentally a choice that you're making. Similarly, when you say something like, "My mother-in-law drives me crazy," you're handing over control of your emotional state to someone else. Perhaps she's not the most pleasant person to be around, but how you respond to her behavior is entirely up to you. You're in control of your reactions, your boundaries, and your engagement. The third category involves unhealthy beliefs about the world. Many of us operate under the assumption that the world owes us something. We think, "If I put in enough hard work, then I deserve success." But expecting success to fall into your lap as some sort of cosmic reward will only lead to disappointment and resentment. The world doesn't operate on a perfect system of fairness and justice. Understanding this isn't pessimistic. It's realistic in a way that empowers rather than victimizes you. Breaking free from these mental habits isn't easy. These unhealthy beliefs have often been with us for years, perhaps decades. They've become comfortable, familiar ways of interpreting our experiences. But the cost of holding on to them is simply too high. Sooner or later, you're going to encounter circumstances in life where you'll need all the mental strength you can muster. When that moment comes, these destructive thought patterns will only hold you back. The good news is that mental strength, like physical strength, can be developed through consistent practice and discipline. Just as building physical strength requires both positive actions, like regular exercise, and the elimination of negative habits, like poor nutrition, building mental strength requires both positive mental practices and the elimination of destructive thought patterns. This isn't about positive thinking in a superficial sense. It's not about denying reality or pretending that everything is wonderful when it isn't. Rather, it's about approaching life's challenges with a mindset that empowers rather than diminishes you. It's about recognizing when your thinking is working against you and having the tools to redirect it in more productive ways. In the chapters ahead, we'll explore specific strategies for identifying and overcoming these destructive mental habits. We'll examine how to replace unhealthy beliefs with more empowering perspectives. And we'll look at real-life examples of individuals who have transformed their lives by developing greater mental strength. The journey toward mental strength begins with awareness, recognizing the hidden costs of those seemingly small mental habits. Once you understand what these patterns are costing you, you'll be more motivated to make the changes necessary to break free from them. And as you gradually build your mental strength, you'll discover a newfound resilience and capacity to handle whatever life throws your way. Chapter 2. When life demands mental strength. Life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. One moment, everything seems to be falling into place. The next, we're faced with challenges that shake us to our core. It's during these moments that mental strength isn't just beneficial, it's essential. At 23 years old, I thought I had life figured out. I had graduated from graduate school, landed my first significant job as a therapist, gotten married, and even bought a house. The future looked bright, and I felt like I had an incredible jumpstart on success. What could possibly go wrong? Everything changed with a single phone call. My sister called to tell me that our mother had been found unresponsive and taken to the hospital. My husband Lincoln and I immediately rushed there, unable to imagine what could be wrong. My mother was only 51 and had no history of health problems. When we arrived, doctors explained that she had suffered a brain aneurysm. Within 24 hours, my mother, who used to wake up every morning saying, "It's a great day to be alive," passed away. The news was devastating. My mother and I had been very close. As a therapist, I understood the grieving process intellectually, but knowing something and experiencing it are vastly different. The journey through grief was long and painful, and it took considerable time before I felt like I was truly healing. 3 years later, on the anniversary of my mother's death, some friends invited Lincoln and me to a basketball game. Coincidentally, the game was being played at the same auditorium where I had last seen my mother, the night before she passed away. I hadn't been back since and wasn't sure I wanted to return. After discussing it, Lincoln and I decided that attending might be a good way to honour her memory. We went to the game and actually had a wonderful time with our friends. On the drive home, we talked about how meaningful it was to finally be able to return to that place and remember my mother with a smile rather than overwhelming sadness. Shortly after we got home that night, Lincoln said he wasn't feeling well. A few minutes later, he collapsed. I called for an ambulance and his family met me at the emergency room. After what seemed like an eternity of waiting, a doctor came out. Instead of taking us to see Lincoln, he led us to a private room, sat us down, and delivered the unthinkable news. Lincoln, the most adventurous person I had ever known, was gone. He had suffered a heart attack at just 26 years old, with no prior history of heart problems. Suddenly, I found myself a 26-year-old widow without my mother to lean on for support. The pain was indescribable. It was during this dark period that I realized something crucial. When you're going through truly tough times, good habits alone aren't enough. It only takes 1 or 2 small destructive mental habits to hold you back significantly. I worked tirelessly, not just to cultivate positive habits, but to eliminate those small negative habits, no matter how insignificant they might seem. Throughout this process, I held on to hope that someday life could improve. Eventually it did. A few years later, I met Steve. We fell in love and got married. We sold the house that Lincoln and I had shared and bought a new one in a different area. I started a new job. Just as I was beginning to feel relief about this fresh start, we received devastating news. Steve's father had terminal cancer. My first instinct was to fall back into those destructive thought patterns. Why do these things always have to keep happening? Why do I have to keep losing my loved ones? This isn't fair. But I had learned that this way of thinking would only hold me back. I knew I would need all the mental strength I could gather to face yet another loss. So I sat down and created a list of all the things mentally strong people don't do, all the bad mental habits that I had engaged in at various points that had kept me stuck. I reviewed this list repeatedly, using it as a reminder and a guide. I needed it desperately because within weeks of writing it, Steve's father passed away. My journey taught me that the secret to mental strength isn't just about adding positive habits, it's equally about giving up destructive mental habits. Mental strength parallels physical strength in this way. If you want to be physically strong, you need to exercise regularly, but to see real results, you also need to eliminate unhealthy eating habits. Similarly, to be mentally strong, practices like gratitude are valuable, but you must also abandon habits like resenting others' success. Life will inevitably present us with challenges that test our resilience. Some of these challenges may be relatively minor, a project at work that doesn't go as planned, a disagreement with a friend, or a financial setback. Others may be profound and life-altering, the loss of a loved one, a serious health diagnosis, or the end of a significant relationship. In these moments, our mental habits become magnified. The patterns of thinking that we've developed over time will either support us through the difficulty or intensify our suffering. This is why developing mental strength isn't just about preparing for some hypothetical future challenge. It's about equipping yourself to handle the reality of life's unpredictability. The losses I experienced taught me that we can't control many of life's circumstances, but we can control how we respond to them. We can choose whether to become victims of our circumstances or to find ways to grow through them. We can decide whether to allow our pain to define us or to use it as a catalyst for developing greater strength and resilience. This doesn't mean denying the reality of suffering or pretending that painful experiences don't hurt. It means acknowledging the pain while refusing to be diminished by it. It means finding ways to continue moving forward, even when the path ahead seems unclear. It means recognizing that our capacity to endure and overcome is greater than we often realize. In the next chapter, we'll explore specific strategies for training your brain to think differently, to give up those destructive mental habits and replace them with healthier, more empowering beliefs. Because while life will inevitably test your mental strength, you can prepare yourself to meet those tests with greater resilience and clarity. Chapter 3. Training your brain for resilience. How do you train your brain to think differently? How do you give up those destructive mental habits that you've carried with you, perhaps for years? It starts by countering unhealthy beliefs with healthier ones, systematically addressing each of the 3 categories we've discussed. Let's begin with unhealthy beliefs about ourselves. These primarily emerge because we're uncomfortable with difficult emotions. Feelings like sadness, hurt, anger, or fear are inherently uncomfortable, and we naturally want to avoid discomfort. We go to great lengths to escape these feelings, often through distractions like self-pity or denial. While these strategies might temporarily divert our attention, they ultimately prolong our pain. The only effective way to deal with uncomfortable emotions is to go through them, to allow yourself to feel sad, acknowledge the feeling, and then move forward. This builds confidence in your ability to handle discomfort, a crucial component of mental strength. Consider grief, for example. When we lose someone we love, the pain can be overwhelming. Our instinct might be to avoid that pain through denial, excessive busyness, or numbing behaviors like overworking or substance use. But these avoidance strategies only delay the inevitable. The grief remains, waiting to be processed. By allowing yourself to experience the sadness, to move through the stages of grief at your own pace, you eventually reach a place of acceptance and integration. The pain doesn't disappear entirely, but it becomes manageable, woven into the fabric of your life rather than dominating it. Next, let's address unhealthy beliefs about others. These typically arise from comparison, seeing others as either superior or inferior to ourselves. We might believe that others can control how we feel, that we can control how they behave, or that they're responsible for holding us back. In reality, our own choices determine our path. The healthier approach is to recognize that you are your own person and others are separate from you. The only person you should compare yourself to is the person you were yesterday. Are you growing, learning, becoming more the person you want to be? These are the comparisons that matter, not how your life stacks up against someone else's. This shift in perspective is liberating. When you stop measuring your worth against others' achievements or blaming them for your setbacks, you reclaim your power. You recognize that while others may influence your life, they don't determine your response or your ultimate direction. Finally, let's examine unhealthy beliefs about the world. Deep down, many of us want to believe that the world is fair, that good deeds are rewarded and suffering eventually leads to compensation. We want to believe that if we just work hard enough or endure enough hardship, we'll eventually receive what we deserve. The healthier perspective is accepting that life isn't fair and that this reality can actually be liberating. It means that while you won't necessarily be rewarded for every good deed, you also aren't doomed to continued suffering because of past hardships. The world doesn't operate on a cosmic balance sheet. Your world is what you make it, shaped by your choices, actions, and perspectives. This understanding empowers you to create change rather than waiting for it to be bestowed upon you. It encourages you to take action rather than hoping that things will somehow work out if you just endure long enough. But before you can change your world, you have to believe that change is possible. This belief in your capacity to create change, what psychologists call self-efficacy, is fundamental to mental strength. I once worked with a man who had been diabetic for years. His doctor referred him to therapy because his mental habits were negatively affecting his physical health. His mother had died from diabetes complications at a young age, so he believed he was doomed to the same fate. He had given up trying to manage his blood sugar, which had risen so high that it was affecting his vision. He had even lost his driver's license as a result. When he first came to my office, it was clear that he knew what he needed to do to manage his condition. He just didn't believe it was worth the effort. But eventually, he agreed to make one small change, replacing his 2-liter daily Pepsi habit with Diet Pepsi. He was amazed at how quickly his numbers improved. Despite complaining weekly about the taste of Diet Pepsi, he stuck with it. Once he saw some improvement, he became willing to examine other habits. He traded his nightly bowl of ice cream for a lower sugar alternative. Then, after finding an old exercise bike at a thrift store, he began pedaling while watching television each evening. Not only did he lose weight, but one day he noticed he could see the TV more clearly. It occurred to him that perhaps the damage to his eyesight wasn't permanent. This realization sparked a new goal: to get his driver's license back. From that point forward, he was motivated and engaged, coming to each session eager to discuss new strategies. He had finally begun to believe that he could change his world, that he had the mental strength to overcome his challenges and the power to give up his destructive mental habits. And it all started with just one small step. This pattern of incremental change leading to significant transformation is common among those who successfully develop mental strength. Small victories build confidence, which fuels larger changes. Over time, these accumulated changes create substantial results, both in external circumstances and internal resilience. The process begins with awareness, recognizing your current mental habits and understanding how they're affecting your life. This awareness allows you to make conscious choices about which habits to keep and which to replace. Without awareness, you remain at the mercy of automatic thought patterns that may have been with you for years. Next comes acceptance, acknowledging your current reality without judgment or denial. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It means seeing things as they truly are so that you can respond effectively. When you accept your current circumstances, your strengths and limitations, and your emotional responses, you create a solid foundation for growth. From this foundation of awareness and acceptance, you can begin to take action, making deliberate choices to replace unhealthy mental habits with healthier ones. These actions might include challenging negative self-talk with more balanced perspectives, setting boundaries in relationships where you've given away your power, taking responsibility for areas of your life where you've blamed others, practicing gratitude to counter entitlement thinking, developing emotional regulation skills to better handle discomfort, cultivating self-compassion to reduce self-criticism. The key is consistency. Just as physical strength develops through regular exercise, mental strength grows through consistent practice. Each time you choose a healthier thought pattern over a destructive one, you strengthen neural pathways that support resilience. Over time, these healthier patterns become more automatic, requiring less conscious effort. Remember that developing mental strength isn't about achieving perfection, it's about progress, becoming incrementally stronger and more resilient over time. There will be setbacks and challenges along the way. You'll sometimes fall back into old patterns, especially during periods of stress or fatigue. What matters is your commitment to the process, your willingness to begin again when you falter. So I invite you to consider, what destructive mental habits are holding you back? What unhealthy beliefs are keeping you from being as mentally strong as you could be? And what is one small step you could take today, right now, to begin building greater mental strength? Perhaps it's catching yourself the next time you compare your life to someone else's highlight reel on social media. Maybe it's recognizing when you're engaging in self-pity and choosing a more empowering perspective. Or it could be acknowledging an area where you've given away your power and taking steps to reclaim it. Whatever that first step is for you, remember that it doesn't need to be dramatic to be significant. The journey to mental strength begins with a single choice, a decision to think differently, to challenge old patterns, to believe in your capacity for change. That choice, repeated consistently over time, has the power to transform not just how you think, but how you live. Chapter 4. Conquering self-defeating thoughts. The voice in your head has tremendous power. It can be your greatest ally or your most formidable opponent. For many of us, that inner voice tends to be harshly critical, constantly pointing out our flaws, magnifying our mistakes, and undermining our confidence. These self-defeating thoughts can sabotage your efforts before you even begin. Consider how often you might think, "I'm not good enough for this opportunity. I'll probably fail if I try. I don't deserve success. Who am I to think I could accomplish something so significant?" These thoughts aren't random. They're patterns that have developed over time, influenced by past experiences, cultural messages, and the interpretations you've made about yourself and the world. The first step in conquering these self-defeating thoughts is simply to notice them. Most of us have become so accustomed to our negative inner dialogue that it operates below the level of conscious awareness. We don't recognize these thoughts as thoughts. We experience them as truth. Creating distance between yourself and these thoughts is essential for gaining control over them. Try this exercise. For the next 24 hours, carry a small notebook or use a notes app on your phone. Each time you notice a self-defeating thought, write it down. Don't judge it or try to change it yet. Just document it. You might be surprised by how frequently these thoughts occur and the patterns they follow. Once you've developed greater awareness of your self-defeating thoughts, the next step is to examine them objectively. Ask yourself, is this thought actually true? What evidence supports or contradicts it? Would I say this to a friend facing a similar situation? Often, we hold ourselves to standards that we would never impose on others. We speak to ourselves with a harshness that we would find unacceptable if directed towards someone we care about. A client of mine, a talented graphic designer named Melissa, was offered the opportunity to lead a major project at her firm. Her immediate internal response was, "I can't handle this. I'll mess it up, and everyone will see that I'm a fraud." When we examined this thought, she realized she had successfully completed dozens of projects in the past, had received consistently positive feedback from clients, and had been specifically chosen for this opportunity because of her demonstrated skills. The thought, "I can't handle this," wasn't aligned with the actual evidence of her capabilities. After identifying and examining self-defeating thoughts, the next step is to replace them with more balanced, realistic alternatives. This isn't about positive thinking in a superficial sense. It's about accurate thinking. Instead of, "I can't handle this," Melissa reframed her thought to, "This project will be challenging, but I have the skills and experience to manage it. If I encounter difficulties, I can seek support." This reframed thought acknowledged the challenge ahead while affirming her capabilities and recognizing resources available to her. It was both realistic and empowering, unlike the original thought, which was distorted and disempowering. Certain types of self-defeating thoughts are particularly common and destructive. One is catastrophizing, assuming the worst possible outcome will occur. "If I make a mistake in this presentation, my career will be over." Another is all or nothing thinking, seeing situations in black and white terms with no middle ground. Either I do this perfectly, or I'm a complete failure. A third is personalization, assuming excessive responsibility for events outside your control. The project didn't succeed because I wasn't good enough. Recognizing these thought patterns allows you to challenge them more effectively. When you catch yourself catastrophizing, ask, "What's the most likely outcome here, not the worst possible one?" When you notice all or nothing thinking, look for the gray areas. What's between perfect success and total failure? When you find yourself personalizing, consider all the factors involved. What other elements contributed to this situation beyond my individual actions? Another powerful strategy for conquering self-defeating thoughts is to develop a growth mindset, the belief that your abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. With a growth mindset, challenges become opportunities to learn rather than threats to your self-worth. Failures become valuable feedback rather than evidence of inherent limitations. Sarah, an entrepreneur I worked with, initially viewed every setback in her business as confirmation that she wasn't cut out to be a business owner. Successful entrepreneurs don't make these kinds of mistakes, she would tell herself. As she developed a growth mindset, her perspective shifted. Every entrepreneur faces challenges and makes mistakes. The successful ones learn from them and adapt. This shift allowed her to approach difficulties with curiosity rather than self-condemnation. The language you use with yourself matters tremendously. Pay attention to the words that populate your inner dialogue. Are you speaking to yourself with compassion and encouragement, or with criticism and doubt? Simple shifts in language can have profound effects on your mindset and performance. Instead of, I have to do this, try, I choose to do this. Instead of, I'm terrible at public speaking, try, I'm developing my public speaking skills. Instead of, I'll never be able to accomplish this, try, I haven't figured out how to accomplish this yet. These subtle changes emphasize agency, growth, and possibility rather than obligation, fixed limitations, and finality. Remember that conquering self-defeating thoughts isn't about eliminating negative thinking entirely. It's about developing a more balanced, realistic perspective that acknowledges challenges without being dominated by them. It's about creating an inner dialogue that supports your growth and resilience rather than undermining it. This process takes time and consistent practice. You've likely been thinking in certain patterns for years or even decades. These neural pathways won't be rewired overnight. Be patient with yourself and celebrate progress, no matter how small. Each time you notice a self-defeating thought and choose a more empowering alternative, you're strengthening your mental muscles and building greater resilience. The ultimate goal isn't to eliminate all negative thoughts, but to develop a healthier relationship with your thinking, to recognize thoughts as mental events rather than absolute truths, to respond to challenges with flexibility rather than rigid self-criticism, and to cultivate an inner voice that motivates and supports you rather than diminishes you. As you practice these strategies consistently, you'll likely notice not only changes in your thinking, but also in your emotions, behaviors, and results. When your inner dialogue shifts from I can't to I can find a way, your emotional state shifts from anxiety to determination, your behaviors shift from avoidance to engagement, and your results shift from stagnation to progress. This is the power of conquering self-defeating thoughts. It transforms not just your internal experience, but your external reality as well. Chapter 5. Building Emotional Resilience. Life is inherently emotional. We experience joy, sadness, anger, fear, excitement, disappointment, a full spectrum of feelings that color our experiences and influence our decisions. Emotional resilience isn't about eliminating difficult emotions. It's about developing the capacity to experience the full range of human feelings without being overwhelmed or controlled by them. Many of us have been taught, either explicitly or implicitly, that certain emotions are unacceptable or dangerous. We learn to fear sadness, suppress anger, hide fear, or deny disappointment. These attempts to avoid or control our emotional experiences actually diminish our resilience rather than enhancing it. True emotional resilience begins with acceptance, acknowledging your feelings without judgment or resistance. This doesn't mean wallowing in negative emotions or allowing them to dictate your actions. It means creating space for your feelings, recognizing them as natural responses to your experiences, and then choosing how to respond to them. Consider the difference between these two approaches. I shouldn't feel anxious about this presentation. I need to get rid of this feeling. Versus, I notice I'm feeling anxious about this presentation. That's understandable, and I can move forward despite this feeling. The first approach creates an internal struggle, adding a layer of self-criticism to the original anxiety. The second approach acknowledges the feeling without judgment and maintains a sense of agency. Emotional awareness is the foundation of resilience. Many people operate with limited emotional vocabulary and awareness, describing their feelings in vague terms like good, bad, fine, or stressed. Developing greater emotional granularity, the ability to distinguish between similar emotions with precision, enhances your capacity to respond effectively to your emotional experiences. For instance, recognizing that what you're feeling is disappointment rather than sadness, irritation rather than anger, or nervousness rather than fear allows you to respond in ways that address the specific emotion you're experiencing. Each emotion carries different information and calls for different responses. Physical awareness is equally important for emotional resilience. Emotions aren't just mental experiences, they have physical components as well. Anxiety might manifest as a racing heart, tension in your shoulders, or shallow breathing. Anger might appear as heat in your face, tightness in your jaw, or clenched fists. Sadness might show up as heaviness in your chest, fatigue, or tearfulness. By tuning into these physical sensations, you gain valuable information about your emotional state, often before you've consciously identified the emotion. This awareness creates a crucial pause between feeling and reacting, allowing you to choose your response rather than being driven by automatic reactions. One powerful practice for building emotional resilience is mindfulness, the ability to observe your thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations with present moment awareness and without judgment. Regular mindfulness practice, even just a few minutes daily, strengthens your capacity to notice emotions as they arise and to maintain perspective rather than becoming identified with your feelings. James, a healthcare executive I worked with, struggled with emotional reactivity in high-pressure situations. When faced with unexpected problems or criticism, he would become visibly angry, making impulsive decisions and damaging relationships with colleagues. Through mindfulness practice, he developed the ability to notice the early signs of anger, the slight increase in heart rate, the tightening in his chest, the urge to interrupt or raise his voice. This awareness created space for him to pause, take a few deep breaths, and choose a more measured response. Over time, this practice transformed his leadership style and his effectiveness. He wasn't suppressing his anger, he was relating to it differently, acknowledging it without being controlled by it. Another essential aspect of emotional resilience is self-compassion, treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a good friend. Many of us are harshly self-critical, especially when experiencing difficult emotions. We add an additional layer of suffering through thoughts like, I shouldn't feel this way, I'm overreacting, or I need to pull myself together. Self-compassion involves three elements: mindfulness of your suffering, recognition of the common humanity in your experience, remembering that others feel this way too, and kindness toward yourself. Research has shown that self-compassion is associated with greater emotional resilience, reduced anxiety and depression, and increased motivation for growth and change. When facing a difficult situation, try asking yourself, how would I respond to a friend who was experiencing this? Then offer yourself the same compassion and support. This simple practice can transform your relationship with challenging emotions and enhance your resilience. Emotional regulation strategies are also crucial for building resilience. These include techniques for modulating the intensity of your emotions when they threaten to overwhelm you. Deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, physical exercise, time in nature, creative expression, and social connection are all evidence-based approaches for regulating emotional intensity. The key is to develop a diverse toolkit of strategies and to recognize which approaches work best for different emotions and situations. What helps you manage anxiety might differ from what helps with sadness or frustration. Experimentation and self-awareness will guide you toward the most effective strategies for your unique needs. It's important to distinguish between healthy emotional regulation and unhealthy avoidance or suppression. Healthy regulation allows you to experience emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Avoidance or suppression attempts to prevent emotional experiences altogether, which ultimately increases psychological distress and reduces resilience. For example, having a good cry when you're sad and then engaging in a comforting activity is healthy regulation. Keeping yourself constantly busy to avoid feeling sadness is unhealthy avoidance. Taking a brief break when angry to calm down before addressing the situation is healthy regulation. Pretending you're not angry when you are is unhealthy suppression. Building emotional resilience also involves developing a balanced relationship with positive emotions. While difficult emotions often demand our attention, positive emotions like joy, gratitude, interest, and serenity are equally important for resilience. Research in positive psychology has shown that positive emotions broaden our perspective and build our resources for coping with future challenges. Intentionally cultivating positive emotions through practices like gratitude journaling, savoring positive experiences, engaging in activities that create flow, and nurturing positive relationships creates a psychological buffer that enhances resilience when difficulties arise. Finally, remember that emotional resilience isn't about going it alone. Seeking support from others, whether friends, family members, colleagues, or mental health professionals, is a sign of strength, not weakness. Sharing your emotional experiences with trusted others reduces isolation, provides perspective, and offers comfort during challenging times. As you develop greater emotional resilience, you'll likely notice several shifts in your experience. Greater confidence in your ability to handle difficult feelings, reduced fear of emotional experiences, increased willingness to engage with challenges, more authentic connections with others, and a deeper sense of wholeness as you embrace the full spectrum of human emotion. This is the essence of emotional resilience, not the absence of difficult feelings, but the capacity to experience all emotions as valuable aspects of a rich and meaningful life. Chapter 6. The Power of Purposeful Action. In moments of adversity, one of the most powerful antidotes to helplessness and despair is purposeful action, taking steps, however small, that move you toward what matters most. While we can't control many of life's circumstances, we can always control our response. This agency, this capacity to act with intention rather than merely react, is at the core of mental strength. Many people become paralyzed when facing significant challenges. They ruminate on the problem, worry about potential outcomes, or wait for circumstances to change before taking action. This passive stance intensifies feelings of helplessness and diminishes mental strength. The alternative is to focus on what you can control and take deliberate action within that sphere of influence. Consider the story of Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps during World War II. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl describes how, even in the most horrific circumstances imaginable, he discovered that he retained one essential freedom: the ability to choose his response to what was happening. He couldn't control the external conditions of his imprisonment, but he could control his inner life, his attitudes, his focus, his interpretation of events. This insight became the foundation of his approach to psychology and his understanding of human resilience. He observed that those who maintained a sense of purpose and meaning, even in the midst of suffering, were more likely to survive the camps. Purpose provided a reason to endure, a context that made suffering bearable, and a direction for whatever limited choices were available. While most of us will never face circumstances as extreme as Frankl's, his insights apply to all forms of adversity. Purpose transforms suffering from something merely to be endured to something that can be meaningful. It converts passive victimhood into active participation in your own life story. How do you discover or clarify your purpose? Start by reflecting on these questions. What matters most to you? What values do you want your life to embody? What contribution do you want to make? What gives your life meaning beyond your own comfort or happiness? Your answers will point toward your unique sense of purpose. Purpose exists at multiple levels. You might have an overarching life purpose that guides your major decisions and priorities. You might also have purpose in specific domains, your purpose as a parent, as a professional, as a community member. And you can find purpose even in difficult circumstances, your purpose while facing illness, loss, or other challenges. The key is to connect your actions, even small ones, to something larger than immediate comfort or problem solving. This connection infuses your efforts with meaning, and sustains you through difficulties that might otherwise seem pointless or overwhelming. Lisa, a woman in her 40s, came to therapy after being diagnosed with a chronic illness that significantly limited her energy and mobility. She had been an active, achievement-oriented person who derived much of her identity from her professional accomplishments and physical activities. The illness forced her to give up her demanding career and many of the activities she loved. Initially, Lisa fell into despair, seeing her situation as meaningless suffering that had robbed her life of value. As we worked together, she began to explore new sources of meaning and purpose. She discovered that her experience with illness gave her unique insight into the challenges faced by others with health limitations. She started a blog, sharing her journey and practical strategies for navigating chronic illness. What began as a personal coping mechanism evolved into a resource that helped thousands of others facing similar challenges. Lisa's suffering didn't disappear, but it was transformed by purpose. Her limited energy was directed towards something meaningful, which in turn gave her a reason to continue adapting and growing despite her limitations. Purpose provides direction for action, but action itself is equally important. Many people get stuck in analysis paralysis, overthinking problems without taking steps to address them. Others become overwhelmed by the magnitude of their challenges and don't know where to begin. The antidote to both patterns is purposeful action, starting with small, manageable steps. When facing any challenge, ask yourself, what's one small thing I can do right now that aligns with my values or moves me in a positive direction? Don't worry about solving the entire problem immediately. Focus on taking that first step, then the next, and the next. These incremental actions build momentum and confidence while preventing the stagnation that comes from waiting for perfect solutions or ideal circumstances. Robert, an executive facing a major organizational crisis, felt paralyzed by the complexity of the situation and the high stakes involved. Instead of attempting to solve everything at once, he identified one aspect of the problem that he could address immediately. He had a crucial conversation with a key stakeholder that he had been avoiding. This single action didn't resolve the entire crisis, but it created movement where there had been stagnation, and it provided information that informed his next steps. By breaking down overwhelming challenges into discrete actions, Robert maintained his sense of agency and gradually built a comprehensive response to the crisis. Each step informed the next, creating an emergent strategy that was more effective than any plan he could have developed in isolation before taking action. Purposeful action also involves discernment about where to focus your efforts. Not all actions are equally valuable or aligned with your purpose. The urgent often crowds out the important, and external demands can pull you away from what matters most. Regular reflection on your priorities and values helps ensure that your actions serve your deeper purposes rather than merely responding to immediate pressures. One practical approach is to identify your vital few, the 20% of actions that will produce 80% of the results that matter most to you. This might mean focusing on the relationships that are most central to your well-being, the professional activities that create the most value, or the health practices that have the greatest impact on your energy and resilience. By directing your limited time and energy toward these high-leverage activities, you maximize your effectiveness and minimize wasted effort. Another aspect of purposeful action is persistence in the face of setbacks. Any meaningful endeavor involves obstacles, failures, and unexpected challenges. Mental strength isn't about avoiding these difficulties, but about continuing to take purposeful action despite them. This persistence is fueled by connection to your deeper purpose. When you're clear about why your efforts matter, you're more likely to persevere when the path becomes difficult. Maria, an entrepreneur launching a business focused on environmental sustainability, faced numerous setbacks in her first year: funding challenges, production delays, and lower than expected initial sales. What kept her going wasn't blind optimism, but a deep commitment to her purpose of reducing plastic waste in consumer products. Each setback became a problem to solve rather than a reason to abandon her efforts. Her persistence eventually paid off as the business gained traction and began making the impact she had envisioned. Purposeful action also involves flexibility. adapting your approach based on feedback and changing circumstances while maintaining commitment to your underlying purpose. This balance between persistence and adaptation is essential for effective action in complex, changing environments. Think of it as navigating by the stars rather than following a rigid map. The stars, your purpose and values, provide consistent guidance, but the specific route you take may change as you encounter obstacles or discover new possibilities. This adaptability prevents the rigidity that can lead to frustration and burnout when circumstances don't conform to your expectations. Finally, purposeful action includes regular reflection and learning, taking time to assess what's working, what isn't, and what adjustments might be needed enhances the effectiveness of your efforts and deepens your understanding of both the challenges you face and your own capabilities. This reflection isn't about harsh self-criticism, but about curious, compassionate learning that informs future action. As you develop the habit of purposeful action, you'll likely experience several benefits beyond progress toward your specific goals. Increased self-efficacy, belief in your ability to effect change, reduced rumination and worry, greater engagement with life, enhanced meaning and fulfillment, and strengthened resilience for future challenges. This is the power of purposeful action. It transforms you from a passive recipient of circumstances into an active participant in creating your life, even amid difficulties that you didn't choose and can't fully control. Chapter 7. The Strength of Strategic Relationships. No one achieves greatness alone. Behind every successful individual is a network of relationships that provided support, guidance, challenge, and opportunity at crucial moments. Mental strength isn't developed in isolation. It's forged and reinforced through strategic relationships that bring out your best and help you overcome your limitations. The quality of your relationships has a profound impact on your mental strength. Supportive relationships provide emotional resources that help you navigate challenges. They offer perspective when you're stuck in negative thought patterns. They provide accountability that helps you maintain positive habits. And they create a sense of belonging that buffers against stress and adversity. But not all relationships contribute positively to your mental strength. Some drain your energy, reinforce negative thinking patterns, or undermine your confidence. Others may be generally positive, but not aligned with your specific goals and values. Strategic relationship building isn't about accumulating as many connections as possible. It's about cultivating relationships that specifically enhance your resilience and support your growth. The first step in building strategic relationships is to assess your current relationship ecosystem. Consider the people with whom you spend the most time and energy. Do they strengthen or weaken your mental muscles? Do they challenge you to grow or enable patterns that keep you stuck? Do they support your values and goals or pull you away from what matters most to you? This assessment isn't about judging people as good or bad, but about recognizing the impact different relationships have on your mental strength. Even well-meaning people can inadvertently reinforce negative patterns or discourage positive changes. Understanding these dynamics allows you to make more intentional choices about where to invest your relational energy. Based on this assessment, you might identify relationship gaps, areas where you need support or challenge that your current relationships don't provide. Perhaps you need a mentor who has achieved what you're working toward. Maybe you need peers who share your commitment to personal growth. Or you might need friends who understand a specific challenge you're facing. Identifying these gaps is the first step toward filling them. This might involve deepening existing relationships, rekindling valuable connections that have faded, or establishing new relationships that meet specific needs. The key is to be intentional rather than passive, actively seeking and cultivating relationships that strengthen your mental muscles. One particularly valuable type of relationship for building mental strength is what I call a growth partner, someone who shares your commitment to personal development and with whom you can be completely honest about your struggles and aspirations. This might be a friend, colleague, coach, or therapist. What matters is that this person understands your goals, provides honest feedback, and holds you accountable without judgment. David, a business leader I worked with, established a growth partnership with a colleague from a different department. They met weekly to discuss challenges they were facing, insights they had gained, and progress toward their goals. They asked each other challenging questions, celebrated each other's wins, and provided support during setbacks. This relationship became a cornerstone of David's mental strength practice, providing both accountability and encouragement as he worked to overcome perfectionism and develop greater resilience. Another crucial relationship category is what sociologists call weak ties, connections with acquaintances and colleagues outside your immediate circle. These relationships often provide fresh perspectives, new opportunities, and diverse insights that close relationships might not offer. Cultivating a broad network of weak ties expands your resources for problem solving and creates pathways to new possibilities when you face obstacles. Strategic relationships also include those that challenge you in productive ways. Many people surround themselves exclusively with those who affirm their existing beliefs and behaviors. While supportive relationships are important, growth requires challenge. Seek out relationships with people who think differently than you do, who have achieved what you aspire to, or who will hold you to high standards rather than letting you settle for less than your best. Elena, a writer struggling with procrastination, joined a writing group known for its rigorous feedback and strict submission deadlines. The group's high expectations and direct feedback initially triggered her insecurities, but over time, this challenging environment helped her develop greater discipline, resilience to criticism, and confidence in her work. The relationships weren't always comfortable, but they strengthened her mental muscles in ways that more supportive but less demanding relationships couldn't have. Of course, some relationships in your life may actively undermine your mental strength. These might include people who consistently criticize your efforts, dismiss your goals, enable destructive habits, or drain your emotional resources without reciprocity. While not all difficult relationships can or should be eliminated, particularly those with family members or essential colleagues, you can establish boundaries that limit their impact on your mental strength. Setting boundaries might involve limiting the time you spend with certain individuals, being selective about what you discuss with them, or explicitly addressing behaviors that undermine your well-being. It might also involve internal boundaries, consciously choosing not to internalize negative messages or allow certain relationships to define your self-worth. Michael, a recovering alcoholic, maintained a relationship with friends who continued to drink heavily but established clear boundaries around when and where he would socialize with them. He avoided situations centered around alcohol, met these friends for lunch rather than evening gatherings, and was transparent about what he needed to maintain his sobriety. These boundaries allowed him to preserve valuable relationships while protecting his mental strength and recovery. Building strategic relationships isn't just about what others can do for you. It's equally about what you contribute. The strongest relationships are reciprocal, with both parties benefiting from the connection. Consider how you can add value to your key relationships by offering support, sharing knowledge, providing honest feedback, or simply being fully present and engaged. This reciprocity creates a positive cycle where your contributions strengthen the relationship, which in turn enhances your mental strength. It also shifts your focus from what you lack to what you can offer, reinforcing an abundance mindset rather than a scarcity perspective. Digital relationships deserve special consideration in your relationship strategy. Online connections can provide valuable support, information, and community, particularly around specific interests or challenges. However, they can also promote comparison, create a false sense of connection, or expose you to negativity that undermines your mental strength. Approach digital relationships with intentionality, curating your online environment to support rather than detract from your mental strength. This might mean following accounts that inspire growth, participating in online communities that provide meaningful support, or limiting exposure to content that triggers unhealthy comparison or negative thinking patterns. Finally, remember that your relationship with yourself is the foundation for all other relationships. Cultivating self-awareness, self-compassion, and self-respect enhances your capacity for authentic connection with others. When you understand your own needs, values, and patterns, you can engage in relationships from a place of clarity rather than seeking external validation or avoiding internal discomfort. As you develop strategic relationships that enhance your mental strength, you'll likely notice several shifts: greater resilience during challenges, expanded perspective when facing problems, increased accountability for positive habits, enhanced confidence in your capabilities, and a deeper sense of connection and belonging. These benefits compound over time, creating an upward spiral of growth and resilience. The strength of strategic relationships lies in their ability to both support you as you are and challenge you to become stronger. By intentionally cultivating relationships that serve these functions, you create an ecosystem that nurtures your mental strength and helps you navigate life's inevitable challenges with greater resilience and effectiveness. Chapter 8: Sustaining Mental Strength for Lifelong Success. Mental strength isn't a destination you reach once and for all. It's an ongoing practice that requires consistent attention and refinement throughout your life. Just as physical strength diminishes without regular exercise, mental strength weakens when neglected. The good news is that with intentional practice, your mental muscles can continue to develop and serve you effectively throughout your entire life. In this final chapter, we'll explore strategies for sustaining mental strength over the long term, integrating the practices we've discussed into a cohesive approach that becomes part of your lifestyle rather than a temporary intervention. We'll also address how to adapt these practices during different life stages and circumstances, ensuring that your mental strength remains responsive to your evolving needs and challenges. The foundation of a sustainable mental strength is integration, weaving mental strength practices into the fabric of your daily life rather than treating them as separate activities. This integration happens when mental strength becomes not just something you do, but part of who you are and how you approach life. Consider how you might integrate awareness of self-defeating thoughts into your daily routines. Rather than setting aside specific times to monitor your thinking, you develop the habit of noticing negative thought patterns as they arise throughout your day. This awareness becomes automatic, like noticing when you're hungry or tired. Similarly, emotional regulation practices become integrated when they're not just techniques you use during crises, but approaches you apply consistently in various situations. The mindful pause before responding to a colleague's email becomes as natural as the physical pause before lifting a heavy weight, a habitual preparation that enhances your effectiveness. This integration doesn't happen overnight. It develops through consistent practice, gradually becoming more automatic and requiring less conscious effort. The key is regularity rather than intensity. Brief, frequent practices that reinforce mental habits are more effective than occasional intensive efforts. One approach to supporting this integration is to establish mental strength routines, regular practices that reinforce key aspects of mental strength. These might include a morning routine that sets a positive tone for the day, perhaps including reflection on your values, review of your priorities, or visualization of effective responses to anticipated challenges. Brief check-ins throughout the day to assess your mental state and adjust as needed. An evening review that acknowledges successes, identifies learning opportunities, and releases tensions from the day. Weekly reflection on broader patterns and progress in your mental strength development. These routines create structure that supports consistent practice while allowing flexibility in how you implement specific strategies based on your changing needs and circumstances. Thomas, a sales executive with a demanding travel schedule, established a mental strength routine that adapted to his constantly changing environment. His morning routine included 5 minutes of mindfulness practice and review of his top priorities, regardless of where he was staying. Throughout the day, he used transitions between meetings as cues for brief check-ins with himself. His evening routine included writing 3 things that went well and 1 thing he learned, which he could do, whether in a hotel room, on a plane, or at home. This flexible structure helped him maintain mental strength practices despite his unpredictable schedule. Another key to sustaining mental strength is the principle of progressive challenge. Just as physical training requires gradually increasing resistance to continue building strength, mental strength development requires progressively challenging situations that push your capabilities without overwhelming them. This doesn't mean deliberately creating problems for yourself. Life provides plenty of challenges naturally. Rather, it means approaching increasingly challenging situations as opportunities for growth rather than threats to avoid. It might mean volunteering for projects that stretch your capabilities, engaging in conversations about topics that make you uncomfortable, or setting goals that require you to develop new skills or perspectives. The progressive nature of these challenges is crucial. Taking on challenges far beyond your current capabilities can be overwhelming and counterproductive. The goal is to operate at the edge of your comfort zone, where you're stretched but not broken, challenged but not overwhelmed. Sustainability also requires balance between effort and renewal. Mental strength isn't built through constant striving without rest. Just as physical training requires recovery periods for muscles to rebuild stronger, mental strength development requires periods of renewal that allow your mental resources to replenish. These renewal practices might include adequate sleep, time in nature, meaningful social connection, creative expression, spiritual practices, or simply unstructured time without specific goals or demands. The specific activities that renew you will depend on your individual preferences and needs, but the principle applies universally. Sustainable mental strength requires rhythms of effort and renewal. Adaptability is another essential element of sustainable mental strength. Different life stages and circumstances call for different approaches to mental strength. The strategies that serve you well during one period may need adjustment during another. For instance, during periods of major transition, such as changing careers, becoming a parent, or recovering from illness, your mental strength practice might emphasize acceptance and self-compassion more than challenge and growth. During periods of relative stability, you might focus more on stretching your capabilities and pursuing ambitious goals. The key is to recognize these shifting needs and adjust your approach accordingly, rather than rigidly adhering to practices that may have worked in different circumstances. This adaptability itself is an aspect of mental strength, the flexibility to respond effectively to changing conditions rather than insisting that conditions conform to your preferred approach. Continuous learning supports this adaptability. Remain curious about new insights and approaches to mental strength, whether from research, others' experiences, or your own observations. This learning mindset prevents your practice from becoming stale or rigid and ensures that your approach to mental strength evolves as you do. Community also plays a vital role in sustaining mental strength. While mental strength is ultimately an individual quality, it flourishes in supportive community. Connecting with others who share your commitment to mental strength provides encouragement, accountability, fresh perspectives, and shared wisdom that can sustain your practice over time. This community might be formal, such as a coaching group or personal development program, or informal, such as friends who share your interest in growth. It might be in-person or virtual. What matters is that you have connections with others who understand and support your mental strength journey. As you sustain your mental strength practice over time, you'll likely experience periods of plateau or even regression. These are normal parts of any development process, not signs of failure. During these periods, the most important practice is self-compassion, treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a good friend facing similar challenges. This self-compassion isn't about lowering your standards or making excuses. It's about recognizing that development isn't linear, that setbacks are part of the process, and that harsh self-criticism diminishes rather than enhances your capacity to grow. From this compassionate stance, you can assess what's needed to regain momentum and make adjustments accordingly. Finally, remember that the ultimate purpose of mental strength isn't just personal achievement or resilience. It's about enhancing your capacity to contribute meaningfully to the world around you. Mental strength allows you to bring your best self to your relationships, work, and community to make the difference that only you can make. This connection between personal development and broader contribution creates a sense of purpose that sustains mental strength practices even when they're challenging. When you understand how your mental strength enables you to serve what matters most to you, the effort required to maintain it becomes not just worthwhile, but essential. As we conclude this exploration of mental strength, I invite you to reflect on what you've learned and how you'll apply it in your life. What mental habits will you work to change? What practices will you implement? How will you integrate these approaches into your daily routines? What support will you seek to sustain your practice over time? Remember that the journey of mental strength development is ongoing. There's no final destination where you're done developing mental strength. There are only continuing opportunities to refine your mental habits, expand your capabilities, and deepen your resilience. Each challenge you face, each setback you overcome, each success you achieve becomes part of this ongoing development, strengthening the mental muscles that allow you to not just endure life's challenges, but to thrive amid them. You have within you the capacity for remarkable mental strength. By consistently applying the principles and practices we've explored, you can develop this capacity more fully, becoming not just occasionally strong in favorable circumstances, but consistently resilient, regardless of what life brings. This is what it means to think like a winner, to approach life with the mindset that transforms challenges into opportunities, setbacks into growth, and potential into reality. The path ahead may not always be easy, but with the mental strength you're developing, you're equipped to navigate it with confidence, resilience, and purpose. And that, ultimately, is the greatest victory of all.